Then we're live.
Thank you, Doug. Today on Hive Live, we'll talk about the win scenarios. What has to happen and take place for the Charlotte Hornets to get in the play-in tournament, to just get a top 6 seed. We'll talk about all of that. Plus, take a look at the available free agents. Slim pickings, but are there some guys out there that could help the Hornets next season? That's all today. Hive Live, Fun Friday, Locked On Hornets.
You're Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
David just settling it. David just settling into the show. That's all I heard in my headphones was David crunkling, settling into the show. Welcome, Hive Live.
This is how we do it.
I'm not used to getting up this early anymore to talk Hornets.
We are early. You know, this is the earliest Hive Live we've ever done. In fact, we were supposed to do it earlier, but we got down, I believe, Portland Trailblazers Reddit and also For All Mankind Reddit before we started doing the show. And that was courtesy.
That was an epic pregame rabbit hole that we fell down into. But yeah, we've been doing these shows earlier in the morning now. If you're downloading the audio version of the podcast, or if you've got your notifications turned on the YouTube channel, you might have noticed this past week that the shows are coming out a little bit earlier. I think we're going to keep doing that. So pay attention. What about 9 o'clock Eastern, 9:30 Eastern, 10 o'clock Eastern, somewhere around that time. Look out for our episodes to start dropping.
Yeah, sometimes the pregame talk goes a little long, and then we'll end up dropping the episode around like 10 or 10:30. Sometimes it's our fault. Sometimes that's David's fault for coming in and just stirring the pot, because we got on the Mission Impossible conversation, which, that's fuel to the fire for Doug. He wants to talk about Mission Impossible right here, right now.
You're tempting me. You're tempting me. I've got, well, let's save it. Let's save it for the third segment. I do have I always have Mission Impossible thoughts. We got a new one coming out pretty soon, although I think it might be delayed.
And next year, I think.
I'm frustrated by that. I mean, come on. I mean, I would take a new Mission Impossible over 10 Top Gun sequels any day of the week.
Whoa, easy now. Easy.
People liked it.
Pump the air brakes. Well, he's giving you two. I mean, I think you're going to have two for the next, one for the next each of the 2 years. So you're in good shape. Just be patient, Doug.
I want to talk about win scenarios, and I want to get to this YouTube chat. We've already got people hopping on it, and I'm sure because we're going earlier, we might get some new names in the chat. So if it's your first time in the Hive Live chat,
welcome.
let us know. Let us know where you're from. For example, I'm seeing a name that I haven't seen before very much, Rod Rodriguez, Rod Squared, saying good morning, always great information in your podcast. Hello from Miami. Rod.
Yeah, appreciate that, Rod. All right, we'll get some new guys in here, new people listening to us, and we appreciate you for joining us. I'm Walker Mail. That's Doug Branson, the founder of the pod. That's David Walker, also kind of a founder, right? Like, when did you come on to the pod? Were you there from day one, David?
I appreciate that, Walker. I really do. Well, certainly from day one of Locked On Hornets, not from day one of the Podcats. I believe, Doug, that was your baby.
You want to go down a little? You want to go down history real quick? You want me to run down the history of this podcast?
Please do.
This podcast, why not? It's Fun Friday. This podcast began in 2013 as Podcats. We were covering the Carolina Panthers and the Bobcats. By the way, even back in 2013, naming your podcast Podcats did not track well on the SEO, was not good. It was not a great name. We quickly got rid of that name and started just covering the Charlotte basketball team. We moved to Hive Talk Live when the Bobcats became the Hornets, and that was hosted by me and Spencer Percy, who now hosts BuzzBeat. And we used to bring on David Walker a lot as a guest. And then when we moved to At the Hive, the SB Nation blog, David and I hosted it. And then that became Locked On Hornets. And then the rest is history.
And you guys were with Locked On Hornets from day one, from the Locked On launch, the launched on.
Right. Yeah, 2016 was Locked On. We were I think we were the 14th podcast that now has over 200 podcasts, which is crazy.
I think the funniest thing in there, I'm sure that you kind of dropped a bomb when you said that you and Spencer Percy used to do the podcast together. Like, I wonder how many Hornets fans that just dabble in a whole bunch of different Hornets content. Well, what? Doug and Spencer used to be on the pod together?
It was part of the, what was it, Queen City Hoops. So it was part of that when ESPN used to do the local blogs. What was that called? True Hoop Network. So it was part of that whole thing because we used to. So when I did podcasts and then like I probably started Hive Talk Live before I brought Spencer on, and then Spencer used to come on the show a lot as a guest, and I was like, hey, why don't we do the podcast together? That's usually how this happens. I used to just bring people on as guests, and then they just have so much fun that they end up sticking around.
All right. Well, I appreciate you for downgrading to me and just having me on from 2018 on. I'm not going anywhere, baby. I'm right here, Doug. And we're going to talk about some of these win scenarios. What's the scenario if you want to put a Tribe song title on it? What I want to do is go with what has to happen for the Hornets if they're going to make the play-in tournament. What has to happen for the Hornets if they're going to get a top 6 seed? Maybe just miss the playoffs outright. Let's start with the worst and then build up from there. You want to do something with the rules there, Doug, real quick?
Well, I'm curious on everyone's thoughts about like if nothing happens. Let's
That's
say
the assumption, right?
Right. Nothing else happens in free agency. They don't use the mid-level exception. They don't use the biannual exception. They bring nobody in, and they are without Miles Bridges for next season. What are we talking about win total wise? What are we talking about play-in probabilities?
Yeah, we're going to get to your comments and questions really throughout the show, probably lean heavily on you guys producing the show for us in the third segment. So keep those questions coming in. Doug will probably keep scrolling, maybe not paying attention to me when I talk with these scenarios, but he will be listening to you. So make sure you put those questions in and all of your comments. Let's start with the very worst, right? Let's talk about the scenario where the Hornets do not even get into the play-in tournament, where they are not one of the top, even, any of the top seeds in order to get there from 8 through 10. So if that happens, Doug, first off, I guess my question is, if nothing happens, right, the scenario you just threw out there where they don't use any of their money that they could use and they have the roster intact, what you see right now, this is without Miles Bridges, is that team bad enough to just not get into any play-in scenario? Or is LaMelo Ball too good for that to happen? Is Terry Rozier too much of a scorer where at least you're going to run into some 40-point games? Are they too good for them to just outright miss any postseason action?
I think if they did nothing and no one significantly improved, then you're probably looking at a ceiling of 35 wins. And if Gordon Hayward isn't healthy for a large portion of this season, I'd knock off at least 5 wins there. So you're probably looking at a 30-win season. If you get no massive improvement off the board, they don't, all these young players that we saw in Summer League, no one takes a big leap, then I think easily this is and Gordon Hayward's not healthy, this is a 30-win team.
Yeah, I think Gordon Hayward obviously is key again, how healthy he can stay. And they're obviously going to be counting on him more so now, just with the Miles Bridges situation. So if he is not healthy, then I think that's almost a no-brainer there, Walker and Doug, that they are going to have struggles just getting to that 35-win point.
Yeah, the only thing is you have a couple of teams in the East that are going for Wembanyama. So you have the Indiana Pacers who don't have a ton of talent anymore, especially now that they weren't able to land DeAndre Ayton. Detroit's kind of interesting because they have a lot of young talent, but they are very young, right? Like, yeah, of course. But Detroit having Jaden Ivey, Cade Cunningham, our boy Jalen Duren, right? Like, is that fun enough and good enough?
Just don't say his name anymore. I would like to make a rule. Call him something else. Call him anything else. Player X, I don't care. Just don't mention Jalen Duren.
Player X makes him sound awesome. That would hurt more, I would imagine. He sounds like a robot.
I just don't want to hear his name anymore. But it's no disrespect to him. In fact, it's respect to him, and I wish he was a member of the Charlotte Hornets.
Well, and this thing too with Brooklyn, we'll move on to make you forget. Like, is Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving gone, or are they still there and they're just not playing? So is Brooklyn too bad to make the playoffs? I think the Hornets are probably a little too good as currently constructed to just miss everything entirely.
Miss everything.
Yeah,
I'm with you.
Yeah.
I'm with you. Like if everybody stays healthy, and you're assuming LaMelo is going to make some sort of jump somewhere, and Steve Clifford is going to make this team a better defensive unit. Like I believe that even without a Miles Bridges in there, he's going to bring some principles. He's going to demand some things that's going to take them up the rankings defensively. Of course, questions where they're going to kind of get that production that Miles gave them, but you've still got scoring on that team, right? And who knows what's going to happen in the East. So I'm kind of with you, Walker. Like if they just run it back, throw in Mark Williams at center. Maybe he develops into your starter somewhere along the way. They're right there. They're right there where they always are, right? I mean, that's the thing,
that's
guys,
the
with
problem.
this team. No matter what happens, Kemba leaves, LaMelo comes in. They're always right there. The play-in game is kind of the Mendoza line for them.
Right. And so barring injury, that's the easy escape route for what's the scenario, because you can say, oh, the worst thing that happens is everybody gets injured. And so that probably has to happen for them to miss everything entirely. But let's allow that to transition us into what has to happen for them to continue to be a play-in team. It probably means keeping the roster as currently constructed, right? Like, this is just how it is, where you don't have massive internal improvement, which right now seems like what they're banking on. And PJ Washington, you're probably going to ask him to do stuff that it's probably a little too much. You know, I love PJ. We know that's well documented. I think he's an excellent defender, but I know his limitations handling the basketball, trying to create for others. He's not somebody that you give the basketball to and say, hey, go get me a bucket. He's a spot-up guy. He can bully down low. He got better at shooting at the rim, but internal improvement means just knocking down more of those shots. LaMelo, maybe he can create his own shot. He's probably too good for you to miss the play-in entirely. Is he going to need a lot more internal improvement help in order to get them to a top 6 spot? Like, yeah, this is kind of status quo. Like, that's kind of what I expect from this team, is to get into the play-in tournament, except maybe just on the back end.
Yeah, so what's the scenario that let's I think we talked through that. Let's talk through what happens what has to happen for them to be a 6 seed. So they skip the play-in tournament.
Oh my God.
We're talking best case scenario. What do you think about that, David? What's best case scenario?
LaMelo goes nuclear. I mean, for me, right? And everyone else kind of stays status
All
quo.
NBA. All NBA third team, All NBA second team. What are you? I think All NBA first team is a bit of a stretch goal for year number
MVP contention.
Yeah, I mean that'd be tough. But third team, second team, what are you thinking?
Third team, yeah. I mean, third team be in that conversation there. And I think Terry continues to do what he does. PJ, to your point, Walker probably has to take a step up, right? He's got to do a little bit more, provide them a little bit more. Of course, Gordon Hayward has to stay. I mean, that's for them to succeed. Gordon Hayward would have to play. I mean, what's the line for you guys, really, guys?
Yeah.
Is it 60 games?
I would have said 65, but yeah, it's no difference. Right?
I would have said 69.
Yeah, nice. So yeah, I think that's probably good. If you talk about just like the X factor, if you want some good old fashioned radio talk, who are your list of X factors? Yeah. Rank
no
radio,
better,
baby.
no better letter in the English language in sports radio than X.
X factors. That's what we're here for.
Player
Gordon
X.
Hayward, whether it's because you traded him or not, if he's healthy, he's clearly one of the better players on this team. But the
Some would say
contract
the
is
best. Some would say the best.
Yeah,
so,
the general
yes,
manager would say the best.
some closely.
He's been on the record. He goes on the record with that.
I
love
can't
it.
wait for preseason. I
oh,
want it
goodness
again.
gracious.
I want the best player to be Gordon Hayward.
Yeah, so Gordon Hayward's clearly
You have to
one
ask
of the better
that,
players
by the
on
way,
this
Walker.
team.
Walker, you, it's your responsibility.
Stop telling me questions to ask at press conferences.
Who's the best player? Mitch, who's the best player?
No, it is your. I'm putting it down now for the
I'm not your
commenters,
puppet.
YouTube commenters. You have to hold Walker accountable on this.
do
Walker
not get in
needs
my
to
mentions.
ask Mitch Kupchak who the best player on this team is.
Yeah, it was perfect. That's exactly what I'll do. Yeah, Gordon Hayward is, I think, towards the top, but the contract is so bad, it's clearly beneficial for this team to trade him and try to get some other talent here. So Gordon Hayward is the X factor, whether he's on the roster or whether he's not, because you traded him for something else in return, and now you've actually kind of helped out the future outlook of this team. I think, Jalen McDaniel's kind of sneaky here too, because Steve Clifford values defense so much. Who are the guys that are not going to get played off of the court defensively? Jalen McDaniels is one of those players. Offensively, helps in transition, can knock down the open shot. There are some ball handling skills to his game where if those are ironed out, then Jalen can take that step up to where can he get to 10 consistently a game, 12 consistently a game on good shooting. And if he does that, that really helps. Then all of a sudden, like we were talking about him playing over Kelly Oubre last year anyway, because Kelly was just such an atrocious defender and he went ice cold from the field. So Jalen was better last year, certainly in the second half. Can you get to where there's just absolutely no question Jalen is better, even offensively, that's a real possible internal improvement development there, Doug, where I think that could really help the Hornets.
No, I think you're right, because look, without Miles Bridges, it's easy to slot Gordon Hayward into the 3 spot and then PJ into the 4 spot. And then, your 5 is going to be a battle between Plumlee and Mark Williams. So that's easy to figure out. What's less easy to figure out is who picks up that responsibility off the bench. And it's going to be players that haven't necessarily been given a lot of minutes previously, like Jalen McDaniels, like possibly JT Thor. Do any of those players take that opportunity to raise their game, even possibly into most improved player territory? And so you'd be talking about Jalen McDaniels doing so much that it just opens everyone's eyes. Or PJ Washington, is he a candidate for most improved player? As I said last season, the reason they overachieved last season is that they had several players in contention for the 6th man and most improved player awards. So it's got to be that. It's got to be LaMelo raising his game to all NBA level. And it can't just be that. And someone getting into contention for 6th man of the year or most improved player. Maybe it's Kelly Oubre buying in on the defensive end and becoming more of an all-around player. I would put that low on the probability list.
Yeah.
But I think it's obviously possible. If you're getting optimistic, that's what has to happen. And I go back to what David said. One of the musts is that people buy into what Steve Clifford wants to institute defensively, which includes a lot of stuff in transition. Can they go from bottom of the league to like 18th in the league? I'm not talking about top 10 defense. I don't think this team is ready for that. Maybe next season. Team's not ready for that right now. 18th, 17th, 16th, I'll keep going. 15th, could they get there? I think the ceiling is middle of the road. 15th in the league defensively, if they get there, then yeah, I'll add a couple of wins to my 35 scenario. And I'm not buying, by the way, that the East is all that better. If people are talking about the East getting better, I'm not buying it yet.
I think that the top, the contenders are who we've seen in the last year or two, right? But the Hornets are not. We're not in the conversation with Boston and Philly and Milwaukee. Like that's a different planet. I think. Who knows with Brooklyn? I mean, who knows? They could be down where they were last year, kind of in that Hornets territory, depending on what happens. But yeah, I mean, I think, like I said, I mean, this is every year. This is just rinse and repeat where the Hornets end up.
It's a bad space to be. There's no doubt about it. And I don't think the East – I don't know if the East got a ton better this year, but it almost doesn't matter because they absolutely did get a lot better last year. And so if those guys just remain status quo, then that's going to hurt the Hornets to the point where they're going to be play-in bound once again.
Okay, just really quick scenario. The Hornets win the NBA championship. Here's the scenario. I go into my kitchen. I trip and fall over one of my kids' toys. I bump my head pretty severely. I black out. I have a fantasy. In that fantasy, I'm playing point guard for the Charlotte Hornets alongside LaMelo, who we've moved to shooting guard, and we win the NBA championship. That's the scenario, folks.
Why did you put yourself over LaMelo at point guard?
I didn't put him over. I slid LaMelo.
Why did you just go to
the height? Yeah, I'm looking. I think it says 6 feet on my driver's license, but I'm pretty sure I lied at the DMV.
That's not true. All right, I have a couple of other.
I wore high heels.
You needed to get to 6 feet, and you did that any way possible. David, you had.
They don't measure. You can say anything. They don't measure you.
Well, I was just saying one scenario I think is highly unlikely, just because we've never seen it happen before, is if some of these young guys really improve. I'm thinking like a Book Knight, even a Thor.
Well, I wanted to get to that too.
Yeah. So that would allow Mitch to make moves in season, unload some of these Terrys and some of these contracts that they may be able to improve the team that way. We just haven't seen it done. We've seen the improvement. We've seen the roster improve in the offseason and individual guys get better, but we haven't seen them leverage that into in-season trades, moves, what have you. So that would be one scenario that's just, it doesn't seem likely because we haven't seen it, but that's obviously another route they could take, if it presents itself.
I just want to prepare people that we've been talking a lot about the scenarios where they get in the play-in. I think if you looked at sort of the distribution of probabilities of where this season can go, because there's so many variables like injuries and suspensions and different things, I think the distribution of scenarios is heavily weighted on not only missing the play-in, but possibly being in contention for like mid-lottery. Like I don't, right now, unless they make some moves in free agency, I don't, and there are not many to make, and it still wouldn't raise my hope all that much. But barring that, I have low hopes for this season going.
Yeah, the two things I'll say before we move on. James Bouknight's interesting as far as like the widest range of outcomes that could take place. I think James Bouknight might be that guy because he is so talented, but I have no clue how much he's going to play next season. We did see the scoring ability. Can we get a more consistent Kelly Oubre type of game from James Bouknight as far as being that guy off of the bench and come in and score, and then just have that actually play out throughout the whole season? Like, that's the kind of role I want to see from Bouknight, and then we'll see if he starts or whatever. And he won't start over Terry. The other thing is, ultimately, if they're going to make the playoffs, a top 6 seed, there has to be a significant trade, not just a trade. There has to be a significant trade, and I think that's possible, but we have not seen this team do that under Mitch Kupchak. And maybe it's because they didn't feel like that was the time. If you do feel like it's the time now, that's the only way I can see them getting to a top 6 seed.
And I'll just say, guys, this offseason is one huge black cloud at this point. There's so much to kind of be distraught over with the Hornets in this offseason. But I still think they're going to be a fun team to watch. I mean, a lot of it depends on what Clifford does, how much he really buys into committing to staying with that upbeat pace, that fast-paced offense, letting LaMelo do his work. But they've got LaMelo out there for one.
Melo's fun-proof, right? Like you're always going to have fun with him on your team.
So I think once things get rolling, they have a chance to still be a fun league pass team, be an entertaining team on the floor, which is all we asked for many, many years. And if things go right, they could land exactly where they have been landing in that playing game, maybe sneak in to one of the top 6 seeds if everything goes well and they make a trade. But I still think it's going to be a fun team to watch at times. There are just so many variables. I mean, the Clifford thing, we haven't even hit on that much. I mean, who knows what it's going to look like once they get in there and start working.
Okay. Talked about a lot there. We'll get to some of your questions in a moment, but we'll also have this coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Don't go to sleep on the Hornets just yet.
We talked about making some moves via trade. What about free agents that are still available? Is there anybody that could help the Hornets next season?
Is there anybody
I don't know.
out there?
Yeah, Doug continues to sing when we come back, but not before we talk about BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your betting needs and sports info. You can find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's Major League Baseball regular season. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sport wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. And BetOnline.net remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and the action. BetOnline, where the game starts. More Hive Live coming up next. Locked On Hornets.
This is Locked On Hornets.
We got a couple of rookies here. I got David spreading fake news.
Guess what? 4 championship games in a row. Continued success, sustainability.
I've got Steve Bob not plugging in his headphones.
Which I would love to see JaVale McGee, get out there on the ice velodrome or whatever you call those things.
This is a professional show we're trying to run here.
Only on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
We have the Early Bird Group joining us on this Hive Live this fun Friday. So, Doug, why don't you reward the Early Birds with some of the questions we can read on air? Are you going to scroll, or do you have some in the bank ready to roll?
Oh, I have one from a longtime participant on the chat. In fact, we gave him a nickname, Danny on the chat. And I'm afraid to report that the Hornets have lost Danny on the chat. Danny has been full of hope, full of promise, full of happiness for a long time, and they've killed that. So I'm just going to read through just several of Danny's chats here. Mitch is incompetent. Guy contradicts himself constantly from press conference to press conference. Isn't capable of doing anything well outside of drafting. Next message. How are we supposed to have any good feeling about this team when they poop the bed on the things within their control and can't navigate the things outside of their control well either? Next chat. I just wish I could root for a team where if wasn't doing the heavy lifting when it comes to winning games. LOL. We've lost Danny on the chat. RIP 2022. We've lost him.
If I were to come up with a group of loyal listeners over the years, and I were to read that comment without giving you the name, and then I was to say, "Hey, guess who it was?" I don't think anybody would guess Danny on the chat, right? Like, nobody would say it was him.
It's the old Walter Cronkite. Like we've lost Danny.
I feel you though. I don't think you made any terrible points by any means, so I apologize that you have to watch all of this. Doug, what else do you have for us there in the chat from anybody else that you thought asked some interesting questions or comments?
Scrolling now, Nick says we should pay PJ now before he goes crazy and we have to overpay. Nick, the problem with that is that paying him now would most likely would require going near or into the luxury tax, which it seems this team is unwilling to do.
Does that kind of answer your Miles Bridges question next year too? If you were to pay PJ Washington now, is that kind of hinting at we figured out what we're doing with Miles and we're going to let him go?
That would be a totally good hint. But even it just depends on what you think. If you can get a bargain for PJ by paying him now, and if PJ PJ might do the same thing that Miles Bridges did, which is say, I want to delay that decision until the next offseason when I feel I can go into the open market and get more money. And, because even if they do it this season, they're still going to get close to the luxury tax because of the almost $10 million they're paying to Nick Batum's, dead carcass. So
alive in LA, not completely dead over there. They brought him back.
No, just dead in our hearts. Yeah, no, he's not. I'm sorry, he's not actually dead. I'm not reporting anything there.
Yeah, don't do that. Play the speculation music. In fact, don't even do that. We know, we can see for ourselves. Anything else, Doug, or should we move on?
Yeah, let's move on.
All right, sounds good. Let's talk about some of the free agents available out there for the Charlotte Hornets to get. David, Doug, have you guys looked at the list at all? If you hadn't, then it still might be the same answer of there's nobody out there for the help or for the benefit of Charlotte. But Doug, it seems like you have a name.
Well, I tell you, there are 3 former Charlotte Hornets, / maybe one of them was a Bobcat.
I know one was.
The on the list of the best remaining 2022 NBA free agents ranked. Would you like to take a guess at who those players are? This is according to SB Nation's best remaining free agents left in the pool. 3 former Hornets on the list.
Montrezl Harrell would be one of my guesses.
He is number 2 on the list, but I'm going to go ahead and say that that's very unlikely that he comes back to the Charlotte Hornets.
But I will say about Montrez, of the guys that I saw, Doug, that are available, Montrez is the one that I would most want to bring back.
Yeah.
You've had to be really confident about Mark Williams playing big minutes. Fine, but offensively, again, it was never about offense for Montrez. That the pick and roll did work for LaMelo. In the play-in game where they laid an egg, Montrez was the one that actually seemed like he gave a bleep. He got to the free throw line and was hitting some foul shots and was actually taking it to those guys. Yeah, I'll always have love for Trez, man. Again, we know his limitations, but when you look at this list, this wouldn't have been true at the beginning of free agency by any means. But now, July 22nd, Trez would come in and actually give you some helpful things. And I don't know how much that is there with the other free agents available. Right now, people saying, I'm looking at reports here. A lot of reports have Montrez going to the Heat. The Heat.
Okay.
Oh, sweet. Montrez. Awesome. Great.
Well, he has the legal matters too. 3 pounds of weed, that'll give some teams away.
Yeah,
there's that baggage that the Heat culture might be able to sustain, but probably not a great idea right now in the environment that the Charlotte Hornets are dealing with. So the 2 other names, there's 2 more. Anyone? Dwight Howard, one of them. Yeah. Dwight Howard is number 12 on the list. Of course, played for the Charlotte Hornets. And finally, he hit a couple of big shots against Toronto.
No way, Jeremy Lamb.
Jeremy Lamb
Okay.
is number 14 on the list. Both Lamb and Dwight Howard are unrestricted free agents.
I'm glad he got his money, but I hate he also fizzled out with the injuries, just not allowing him to do too much in Indiana. Jeremy Lamb, a fun Charlotte Hornet, like the growth that was there. Steve Clifford, putting him in the doghouse for a while, but then he somehow blossomed. He was the rose in the crack of the cement, and then goes to Indiana after he gets paid and just gets injured.
Howard could be interesting. They brought in Howard to play under Steve Clifford. Now that was a massive trade that was trying to unwind what they did with the Miles Plumlee trade. This would be an entirely different scenario.
Was that the Mason Plumlee trade? Or was a Plumlee involved in that trade?
Miles.
It was Miles. Oh, did I say Mason? I meant
No,
Miles.
it was
I don't
Miles.
know. I heard. Yeah, go ahead.
I think it was Marshall Plumlee, actually.
Okay, there's too many. We're done with the Plumlees, I think. So, yeah, Dwight Howard, that could be interesting. There's another one, number 4 on this list, Hassan Whiteside, Pride of Gastonia. You bring back a local kid.
We tried to bring him on the Hornets forever.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's been
What's the
play
top
for Utah Jazz.
What are some of the top guys left there, Doug?
Colin Sexton at 1 is the big prize left. I don't think that's an option. Carmelo Anthony at 3. Hassan Whiteside at 4. I mentioned Montrez was at 2. Eric Bledsoe at 5. I mean, because let's talk about what they're looking for in free agency, right? I mean, they're probably still looking for possibly another big, a backup point guard, because really you don't necessarily, you tried to fill that with Ish Smith. You ended up trading Ish Smith away. You bring in Isaiah Thomas. They've been just trying to patch up this backup point guard position.
So you think Isaiah Schroeder? Thomas,
Dennis Schroeder?
Your boy.
He's number 6. I listed him as my quintessential mid point guard.
So we're counting out Isaiah Thomas returning then? Or are you saying you're out on that?
Well, he's just not up here on the list, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that we're going down the available options. Isaiah, a good mentor. He gave us some good moments for, I guess, the 2 months he was on the team, if that.
Number 8, Juancho Hernan Gomez, movie star.
Yeah.
Yes. Now we're talking.
Victor Cruz. Yeah, bring on Victor Cruz. He looked great in the movie.
The problem with Cruz. No, Victor Cruz is the football player. He's the Giants wide receiver. Bo Cruz.
Sorry, Bo Cruz.
Victor Cruz is available though, I think, if you wanted to pay him.
The problem you run
Bo
into.
Cruz. I watched it one time. I was half asleep.
The problem you run into for the Hornets with any of these, name guys, I'll throw Bo Cruz in. There's a name guy. Like you're battling. You're kind of battling with teams that have a chance to give these guys, a shot at a ring or a deep playoff run, right? I mean, that's what you can't offer them right now. So it's always going to be slim pickings for the Hornets. I mean, I think if they're going to bring in anything, center again, I think would be number 1 on my list. Who else in that down low, Doug, do you have for like post players? Anybody else out there?
Boogie, DeMarcus Cousins listed at 11, LaMarcus Aldridge listed at 13, and Bruno Fernando listed at 16. Also, Frank Jackson, another guard, a possible backup point guard, who the Hornets originally drafted before trading that pick away.
Yeah, I mean,
I think that was the Bacon. That was a Bacon trade.
Well, the top guy you named was Colin Sexton, and remember
backup point guard.
Well, he was he was reported to be the player that was the most valuable thing the Hornets could get in return for a possible Kemba Walker trade. Remember, it was Colin, and then it might have been one of those Cleveland picks at the time in exchange for Kemba, and that was it. And so when we talked about whether trading Kemba was the right thing, because we all got mad at Mitch Kupchak for just letting him walk, and eventually the Hornets get nothing if they weren't going to give him what Kemba wanted, as far as the financials go. Should you have made that trade? And Colin, when we talk about at least some kind of star power, averaged 24 points in the 2020-2021 season, averaged 16 in the 11 games that he played just last year. Shot well from the field. The three-point shot, the first 3 years, the three-point shot 40, 38, 37. Like, I don't know what that would look like. I mean, The fit does seem weird to me with Colin, because I feel like a lot of his game also involves him having the basketball in his hands. You know, he's not a big assist guy, but LaMelo, to me, I think so much of when we talk about star fits or guys in the backcourt, I think LaMelo helps you out a decent amount. Look, Colin might be a bad idea. I don't know where his like medical history is right now. You know, I know, again, 11 games last year. Cleveland doesn't want him because they have Darius Garland, Okoro. You know, they're going in a different direction. But yeah, like I don't just if you're looking to make a splash, right? If you're looking to make some kind of, hey, boom, talent, let's inject it into the Hornets system. Colin's an interesting name, you know. The weird's probably too fit. The fit is probably too weird though.
Joseph on the chat saying would rather have Sexton than Kimba. Can Sexton be a shooting guard?
Yes.
And he also wants to trade Terry Rozier.
Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, just on the Kemba piece, he's, God love Kemba, legend, obviously here. He's borderline unplayable at times the last couple years. So I don't know what that would look like if he were
Clifford would find a way.
Yeah, he would.
Patch them together.
Man, I can't believe that Colin Sexton is really falling off. I mean, he's fallen that far. Like, I mean, we're talking. That's crazy.
Well, it's got to be injury stuff and then pay, right? Like, I don't know what Colin is looking for or his representatives, but, you know, if he's looking for a ton of money based off what he did the first 3 years in the league, maybe even just what he did 2 years ago, but the injuries are scaring teams off. To be honest, I just don't know enough about that situation. I could just be, talking without having done enough research, which is very clear. But that Colin was a talented player.
I don't think there's much probability that they bring back Jeremy Lamb, especially after they hired Steve Clifford. I don't feel like that would be a likely scenario. Eric Pascal the Rascal, is listed at 10th. That might be we're talking about low risk scenarios, not like people, or not players that are gonna automatically blow your mind. Lou Williams also listed at 15th. If you felt like you need a little scoring punch,
I was going to say, how does that stack up to you, Lou Williams?
It's so funny to hear all of these names and then just remember how they were involved in Hornets rumors once upon a time. Remember, Lou Williams was a guy that the Hornets were looking at. Dwight Howard did play for the Hornets. Colin Sexton, we were able to, 6 degrees to the Charlotte Hornets. You can get there with a lot of these players that we're talking about in 1 degree. Lou Williams being one of those players too.
Can you imagine a Lou Williams, Kelly Oubre sharing the floor? I mean, oh my goodness gracious.
You've got Tsunami Poppy and you've got Captain Lou, so the captain on the high seas. I mean, I like it. I think that's a good combo. Captain Tennille. Hey, real quick on the Colin Sexton thing. So I've got some info pulled up. So he missed a lot of last season after tearing his meniscus 11 games into the year, and he was on track for a big payday. This is on the SB Nation article before that happened. Should be a strong market, but it looks like he's not going to sign until Durant and Irving, that whole situation gets figured out.
Yeah. So I didn't know if there was anything else beyond the meniscus or if people are still scared about that going forward. But that's if you wanted to act like you're putting some talent on this team and doing something.
But he's not. But here's the thing: the Hornets, because they're over the cap, have only a couple of tools available to them. The mid-level exception, which we're thinking is probably around $10.5, $11 million a year, and the biannual, which is I think somewhere in the neighborhood of $3.5 to $6 million, somewhere in that neighborhood. So neither of those gets it done for.
You're right. I wasn't even thinking about the money, which is kind of important.
Not my money. Oh, Walker finally going in my camp. Not my money.
That's exactly what I was doing. No, I don't care. No, just let's look. The thing is, I might have a billion
over here.
I might have $1 billion payroll, but I'd also have a championship. So you can't fault me for that. I'm just going to pay everybody $1 billion salary every single year.
Yeah.
All right. You want to get to some comments and questions before we move on to the third segment?
Let's do it on the other side.
Okay. All right. We'll do. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Don't go to sleep on the Hornets just yet.
We are going to lean on you heavily to create our own content here in the third segment. Coming up next, be the star of the show. Write us your comments and questions. Coming up next, Locked On Hornets.
This is Locked On Hornets.
And would I have liked to see a few more shards? No, I would not have.
I saw some shards.
Only on the Locked On Podcast Network,
Your team every day.
All right, Doug, what do you got for us? Who's writing in some hot stuff?
Well, we've got Mojo on the chat, says not a free agent, but what do you think about LJ Figueroa? He played well in the summer league. That's Mojo there, and he brings up a good point. We've been talking about free agents. We haven't talked a lot about that two-way spot. They still have one available. They've given one already to Bryce McGowens. David, I don't think we've had you on at all since Summer League. So give us some thoughts on LJ Figueroa, and then transition your way into your thoughts on Summer League as a whole.
I don't watch Summer League, guys. I gave up on it this year. I couldn't do it. Sorry.
What I love, Doug set you up with
I saw him shaking his head.
Warning.
I knew what was coming.
Right, an LJ Figueroa question after coming back from vacation with just zero warning. Yeah, all right. So no thoughts on LJ.
No.
Fair enough. Yeah, you can tell us about Larry Johnson later. Yeah, LJ Figueroa, man. I mean, as far as the two-way spot, would you go with LJ, Doug, as one of the two-way spots? So we have, Brady Manick, Tyshawn Alexander, LiAngelo Ball, LJ Figueroa. Also Jalen Crutcher, who I would think you'd say no on.
I think if you didn't feel strongly about anyone else in Summer League, I would look outside of the team, because I didn't see anything from Manick and LJ, enough consistency over Summer League to really. Now they've got training camp. Maybe they invite all of these guys to training camp, and they've seen some things in practice that we haven't seen. I haven't seen anything to justify that other two-way spot over somebody else that they may be viewing. I mean, I think if you find no one else, I know this is going to you accuse me a lot of pandering, and maybe this is a little bit of pandering. But if you don't have really a strong feeling about anyone, then just bring LiAngelo along for the ride.
Yes.
And start to make your star happy.
Right,
they have to. I mean, they've got to start making moves in that direction. It's time.
Look, I say
it stops. It's not going well.
It is funny. I will say, here we are talking about pandering, right? But remember when there was that report? It was last free agency period, not this most recent one, but the one before it, where there were some rumors about the Charlotte Hornets actually trading for Lonzo Ball. And people, you could say, oh yeah, they're just doing that because they want to keep LaMelo happy. Man, Lonzo would be awesome here. And I thought about it even then. If you wanted to trade for Lonzo then, having him in the backcourt, be an awesome defender who just wreaks havoc out there, getting his hands in passing lanes, converting that into transition opportunities. Once you get past the namesake, Lonzo would be awesome. I mean, he is right now with the role that he plays. And so to put him alongside LaMelo, that'd be really fun. Yeah,
Lonzo's dealing with some setbacks on the injuries that he sustained last season, so you'd be taking a little bit of a risk there.
I'm not saying do it. I'm not saying they're going to do it now. I'm not saying that's a possibility. I'm just saying back then.
You're reporting it. I'm trying to get you aggregated again.
Yeah, please do. Yes, Walker Mail says that Lonzo could be in the cards for Charlotte. No, I'm saying that when that was reported then, that rumor came out, I was about it. I was like, hey, bring him on, man. That'd be a fun backcourt pair.
Okay, I'm scrolling. Colt says, Doug, bring back Malik. Malik Beasley? Sure, why not? Who are you talking about?
Yeah, there's no other Malik. Malik Beasley.
There's absolutely zero chance.
He was. I guess he was the guy that shot 40% from three again, and was efficient from the field and averaged double digits.
They just hired Stephen Clifford. You don't hire Stephen Clifford.
You know what? Honestly, as much as we can go back and forth, you're so right about that. There is zero chance. You have created an environment where it is zero chance that Malik Monk would ever come back and play for the Hornets.
Now, there is one player that Zach brings up that I think could be a possibility. A backup point guard would come really cheap. You don't have to pay anything at all. We should trade for DJ Augustine, former Bobcat, wore the racing stripes.
Well, I thought. Well, that's what I thought when we were talking about former Hornets and Bobcats. DJ's still a free agent, right? Or he didn't sign with the team? Did he?
I haven't seen anything on DJ Augustine signing.
Yeah, I think
played with him in Orlando as well.
Yeah, I mean, and Cliff Cliff talked about this is this is not exaggeration. Like he said, DJ Augustine's one of his favorite players like that he's ever coached. He loves DJ, so there's a real shot, to be honest.
All right, back to the chat here. Casey going way out on a limb here, folks. Jokingly says a big LOL in this one, but I am definitely a fan of drafting Wembanyama.
Well, that leads to a pretty interesting topic of you have LaMelo Ball on this team. You know, your team's probably a little too good. You're in an awful spot. You don't want to be in mediocrity, right? Where you're picking high lottery or just outside the lottery in that 15th position. You know,
well, you hired a coach to win. You hired a coach. That's the awkwardness.
No, I know.
You've hired a coach and told him like, hey, if you're not good enough, then we're gonna set you free.
Well, that's the point, and yet we still don't think they're going to get to a top 6 spot, right? I mean, that if I were to ask you to put money down, you're not going to say, yeah, for sure, they're getting to a top 6, and you probably also wouldn't say that they're going to be a bottom 4 team in the Eastern Conference, you know. So either way, it's not a top 5 pick, and it's going to be tough to get that. My point being is like because of what's taken place, you know, you're not that you're tanking, but are you really trying to somewhat punt on this year? Like it, because of what's taken place, man, like that becomes a more realistic possibility than it used to be.
That's the darkest timeline, which you really didn't hit on in that first segment, is just that if this is a lost year, I mean, and it has the possibility to be that. It's sad to say that, but if everything goes wrong, if they get off to a slow start, if everyone is just disinterested and this black cloud continues to hang over this team, if Clifford comes in and just clashes with everyone, which would kind of be hilarious, let's be honest, it could just be a horrible year. Not even thinking about what could transpire that could make the you know, some of the core fans turn away from the team. That it could go bad. It could go bad fast. So we just
honestly
don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I probably didn't give enough credit to how bad it could go too. Like because I mean, there's a possibility you could finish, you know, outside of the play-in altogether. I eventually don't think that's going to happen, but yeah, I mean, it's certainly not out of the realm of possibility.
So I mean, Vegas has the win-loss set. I believe we said 36.5. I mean,
35.
Ooh.
Yeah,
they had it set at 35.
Yeah,
I honestly, I think if I wouldn't bet a ton, but I might take that under.
I said 34 when I projected. Yeah, when I guessed on it, like that looked great.
It'll be here's the thing though, it'll be a fun 34. I think David's right. It might be a bad. Might be bad on the win-loss record.
That stage. Oh no!
You get to watch us talk about it. I mean, that's gonna be fun.
We were there. LaMelo's rookie year. It was a fun 34. Like that was. That's what we were saying. It was a fun
34. We had a lot of hope and promise.
If they just start to go bad and they say, all right, LaMelo, go get yours, and he's just taking every shot and throwing every wild pass and just making highlight play after highlight play. I mean, I think, and they end up if they end up in like that mid-level lottery, that's kind of the sweet spot, I feel like, to move up. Like that's how they moved up to get LaMelo.
You mean like 8 through 10 or something like that? Maybe 7 through 10?
Yeah. I don't know.
By the way, Zach, who asked the question on DJ Augustine, says, hey guys, been peeping your stream. This is the first time I've been able to tune in. I'm in Western Australia. Awesome.
Nice.
Love the international shout-outs. If I scroll back all the way to the top, we had a couple of other shout-outs from Manila. What's up? From Norway, holler. We've had a couple of Norwegians holler at the show. From Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and Western Australia. Love all of the international shout-outs. And then Zach has been a fan of the team, Bobcats and Hornets, since 2004. Well, let me tell you something, Zach. If you're interested at all in the history of this franchise pre-2004, we have another podcast called Every Hornets Box Score that's hosted on Substack. I'm trying to get it up on all the podcast apps. We're working on it. But you can go to everyhornetsboxscore.com and sign up for free and check that podcast out. We actually recorded our second episode. David was on it, and we talked about a game from 2001. So it was November 2001. It was the lost season, essentially. It was the last season before they moved to New Orleans. But really fun episode. We went down a lot of memory lanes.
Everyhornetsboxscore.com. Check it out. All right, last one. Did you want to get to anything else, Doug, or did you want to end it there today? Did you have any other comments?
I'm scrolling. Let's see. You know what? I think we should just go back to Danny Danny on the chat because he's in a really tough place right now. We're all thinking about Danny.
Okay.
He's losing his hope for this team. Danny says, I bet they make a desperation trade at the deadline once they realize how ill-equipped they are. It's something really polarizing like Kyle Kuzma. Okay, maybe polarizing.
Listen.
Maybe polarizing, but high fashion.
Yeah, Kuzma plus Oubre in the tunnel pregame.
LaMelo too.
You want to talk LaMelo? My God.
Yeah.
And Terry. I mean, listen, there's some possibilities there. Listen, if I could just reach out to Danny for 1 second, just
go
reach
ahead.
out.
Well, hold on. Let me put. This is serious. I want to put you full screen here.
Yeah. Let bring it in for the real thing, Danny. Just if I could give you a little advice, just step away. Just take some time. Go away. We'll be
on
here.
vacation
you
for
come
2
back
weeks.
Whenever you want. Yeah,
don't watch Summer League.
Don't watch Summer League. Go on vacation for a few weeks. Maybe come back for the start of training camp. If you want to skip the preseason, I'm fine with that too. Just take a little time for yourself. Just a little reflection. And, things will be better. We're going to be here. The community's going to be here for you. We're always there. So that's what I would say. Just take some time. It's been a rough start to the summer.
Thank you, David. If you find yourself feeling like Danny, then come back to this episode and listen to David's message that it's okay for you too to step away from the Charlotte Hornets and regain some kind of confidence to come back and be a fan of the Charlotte Hornets this regular season. Doug, you got something else, or is it time to end? We finishing it up?
I think I've got one final question. Scrolling. I just saw it. Oh, man, people are like loading the chat up right now. It's okay. All right, here we go. Last question. You ready?
I'm ready.
It's another scenario question going back to our scenarios.
Gotcha.
Sonic Flip 1 asks, do you guys ever see a day where Lonzo, LiAngelo, and LaMelo are all playing together? And if not in Charlotte, where?
I don't know.
I've got one.
You answer it. Go ahead, Doug.
All right. So I've bumped my head. I'm laying on the kitchen floor. Someone discovers me, but it's far too late. I'm now in a coma. My family is devastated. But within that coma, I still have some consciousness. I'm in a constant dream state. I am now the point guard of the Charlotte Hornets, but I'm flanked by all three balls. In fact, we get along so well that they make me an honorary ball. I am now the fourth ball brother. I'm an adopted ball brother. LeVar takes me in as his own, and we all win the championship together. That's the scenario. It's in Charlotte, but it's in my coma-induced dream state.
All right, there you go. That's
I can only imagine the arguments that would take place. I will say yes to this real quick, but I'm going to say they will all three play together. They may have already done this at the Drew League. I'm going to go Drew League is the highest possibility.
LeVar coaching, I could absolutely see it. All right, that'll do it for Locked On Hornets, this Hive Live, this fun Friday. It's fun because David Walker joins us every Friday. He's back from vacation. Danny might need to take a step away. David's already done that, though, so now he's back. He's refreshed, and he's good to talk about some Charlotte Hornets. Me and Doug will continue to be here every single weekday. We're also doing Every Hornets Box Score. If you care about the history of this franchise, find it on everyhornetsboxscore.com, and you can find us anywhere you get your podcast. That includes YouTube. Check us out and make us your first listen. We really appreciate that. Make sure you make your second listen Locked On NBA. It's your daily 30-minute update on the association. Again, Locked On NBA. Have a great weekend. We'll be back with you on Monday.